Boy, do we have a whopper today. Boy, this story never ceases to amaze me more than any other story other than 9/11. But I am surprised not many people are reporting on this on Twitter and other viral media, although the media is now reporting it globally. This is unbelievable. So we're talking about the Jeffrey Epstein sex case and the Ghislaine Maxwell trial and the after effects of both, in which another suicide has taken place, this time from French model scout and model agency manager, Jean-Luc Brunel. If you're not familiar with Jean-Luc Brunel, he gained prominence by leading the model agency Karen Models. He was also the founder of MC2 Model Management, which was financed none other than Jeffrey Epstein, in which there was offices in Miami, New York, and Tel Aviv. And he was under intense investigation that spanned back 30 years, including a 60 Minutes investigation into Brunel, in which he was accused of sexual assault of minors and adults. But he also came under intense scrutiny for his connections with Jeffrey Epstein, for whom he worked with between the years 2000 and 2015, and is accused of being a sex manager of sorts for underage women. Jean-Luc Brunel, who was in a jail cell in La Santé, in France, Paris, France, was found hanged to death in his jail cell. Well, if that sounds familiar, it should, because back in 2019 in August, Jeffrey Epstein was found hanged in his cell at the Metropolitan Corrections on August 10th, 2019. His death was ruled a suicide, and Jean-Luc Brunel's death was ruled a suicide. And just like Epstein, he too, the cameras were not working. Now, what I'm going to do is share articles with you. Now, look, I didn't prepare for this video, and I don't have, I'm not an expert on this. I would probably suggest to you to listen to Addy Ads, who's been probably the best out of everybody regarding the Epstein case. Ryan Dawson has been covering Epstein since I was a kid. Well, it's a joke. Attempted levity, failed. He's been covering it for well over 10 years. I don't know. It's amazing what he's done. And Scott Atwood is another, very few. Jackman Radio, Reed Coverdale, the Libertarians, the cool Libertarians. I would suggest you go to them before you go to me. This is probably like my fifth video I've done, or fourth video I've done, considering the case. And all I'm doing is trying to bring attention to it. That's all I'm trying to do with my minuscule audience. But some of you could probably reach a bigger audience than I can. So all the stuff I'm going to show you today is going to be from articles that have been all over the world. So I'm going to try my best and try and condense it so you won't be confused, because sometimes I'll have to go back in the past to make sense of the future. So where do we start? Well, we have to start with Jean-Luc Brunel, okay? So let's start with an article from BBC. And I'm not talking just about Jean-Luc Brunel. There's been other things that are happening immediately after Ghislaine Maxwell, the associate of Jeffrey Epstein and recruiting underage girls for sex. After her trial, and she was found convicted of 5 charges, and facing up to 68 years in prison, essentially a life sentence. A number of issues have come up which have been sorely underreported which somebody brought to my attention. Max, his name, I won't use his last name. Max, you know who you are. Brought it to my attention the other day about certain things that nobody's really bringing up, and I've noticed it too. But let's share the screen. Jean-Luc Brunel, Epstein associate, found dead in Paris prison. This is coming from BBC 48 minutes ago. French modeling agent and close associate of the U.S. financier and sex offender Jeffrey Epstein has been found dead in his prison cell in Paris. Jean-Luc Brunel was found hanged in a cell in the La Santé prison at 1 o'clock on Saturday. The 76-year-old has been held for over a year as he was investigating suspicions of rape of minors and trafficking of minors for sexual exploitation. Brunel has denied any wrongdoing. Brunel's lawyer said he had been crushed by the allegations and blamed a media judicial system. Brunel co-founded French modeling agency Karen Models in 1977 and MC2 Model Management in the US with funding from Epstein. Brunel was detained at Paris's Charles de Gaulle Airport in December 2020 as he was trying to board a flight to Senegal. His arrest was part of a French inquiry into sex trafficking and sexual assault allegations about Epstein, focusing on potential crimes committed against French victims and suspects who are French citizens. Prosecutors suspected Brunel of raping, sexually assaulting, and sexually harassing multiple minors and adults. They also suspected him of transporting and housing young girls or young women for Epstein. So there you have it. Now, just to get a little bit of a background on Jean-Luc Brunel, because I don't know much about him. So you probably know more about him than me, but I'm going to read you his biography. He began his career in the late 1970s working as a modeling scout for Karen Mossberg's agency, Karen Models in France. And in 1978, he became the head of Karen Models. In 1988, Brunel and his brother Arnaud founded the Next Management Corporation. And then the following year, the Brunel brothers and Faith Cates formed the global marketing agency Next Management Company, in which Kate owned a majority stake in the company, with the Brunel brothers Next Management Corporation owning a minority stake at 25%. Now, Brunel was considered to be a talented scout, and he discovered a number of models who rose to prominence, including very famous actresses along the way, Christine Turlington, Sharon Stone, and Mila Jovovich. He founded Karen Models of America in 1995. In 1988, 60 Minutes did a piece regarding the which was reported by Diane Sawyer, where they talked about, the segment, by the way, is named American Models in Paris, which aired on December 23rd, 1988, in which they covered the conduct of Brunel and fellow Parisian model agent Claude Haddad, in which several models who worked under both men and more prominently with Brunel, they were interviewed by 60 Minutes and described their experiences of the culture that Brunel fostered, where the models were routinely drugged and repeatedly abused. Eileen Ford of the Ford Modeling Agency had sent her models to Brunel for assignments in Paris and was interviewed for the program, which she claimed no prior knowledge of the multiple complaints of models or the sexploitation and drug use. Now, whether Eileen Ford was knowledgeable about this or she's a part of this, it's not proven, so we can't just automatically blame her. Brunel has always denied the claims, which go back, that's 30 years, okay? If this, according to his lawyer, if this was a consistent attack made by a couple of people, 2 or 3 people, last 2 years, 3 years, but 30 years, with dozens of people coming out, his connections to a known sex trafficker and sex abuse of minors for blackmail purposes of nefarious global leaders, influential politicians. I mean, this was a blackmail case overall. A case about power, a case about information, because information is about power. Don't forget that. It's the most important tidbit about this whole thing. There's Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell. Information is power. Ask any intelligence agency. Now, Brunel had met Ghislaine Maxwell somewhere in the 1980s, and she introduced him to Jeffrey Epstein. Now, this was probably in Manhattan, because that's how Maxwell met Epstein, in Manhattan. Brunel had received funds for Epstein, and I think it was up to like $1.5 million, which was to help to launch his new model agency, MC2 Model Management, in 2004. Now, the Daily Beast, they wrote an article in 2020, which is entitled Jeffrey Epstein, Pedophile Billionaire and His Sex Den. And they talk about this story about MC2 modeling, if you want to read it. And what he did was Brunel transferred Karen Models, the US division, not the Paris division, into MC2 Models. So now he has a bigger company. And he then started opening offices in New York City and Miami in 2005. The agency name evokes Epstein through a reference to Einstein's equation for mass energy equivalency, or E equals MC squared. That's why he named that MC2 Model Management. Now remember, Jeffrey Epstein was into eugenics, and a very morbid story about that is that Jeffrey Epstein, through reports of people who worked for him and people who knew him, was talking about creating a race of people he wanted to build this, he had this island. Damn it. familiarity with the National Socialists under the Nazi regime, where they thought that the weak would and their DNA would infect the strong, the intellectual, because he thought about eliminating that weakened DNA, as he called it. So I just wanted to bring that up just a little bit, and which talks about the people that are around him, like Jean-Luc Brunel, Ghislaine Maxwell, and others. So let's get back to Brunel. In the early 2000s, he moves to the United States. And again, according to the Daily Beast, Brunel reported that he relied on funding from his brother Arnaud and then their business partner Etienne de Royce. Before he went to Epstein, Epstein gave the money that he needed to for MC2 Management. Then the charges started coming, first from Virginia Roberts Giuffre, who was originally an Epstein accuser, along with Maria Farmer. Maria Farmer was the first. Annie and Maria Farmer were the first people to bring charges against Epstein about their sex abuse as minors. Giuffre alleged in a 2014 court filing that the system was a cover. The whole thing was a cover for sex trafficking. So MC2 Model Management and Karen Models in New York, not the one that was owned by Cameron Mossberg in Paris, but the one in New York owned by Jean-Luc Brunel. All of this was to get women comfortable with being a model. These young women, and to get them to go to Paris, where they're outside the United States and they feel insecure and alone. And then that's where they're being groomed for sex trafficking. Huge operation, huge. And in other court documents released in August of 2019, Giuffre named Brunel as one of the main associates that Ghislaine Maxwell had directed her as a teenager to have sex with. With a number of these accusations, MC2 Modeling was dissolved on September 27, 2019. All throughout the last 20 years, Brunel was subject of investigation after investigation. Incident reports from Paris, from New York, from Florida, from Los Angeles, followed everywhere with this guy. Back in 2002, supermodel Karen Mulder described to French authorities and French press that the culture of sexual misconduct and manipulation is prevalent in the modeling agency. And she named Brunel as one. She said there were others. But the modeling agency in general is nothing more than filled with sexual predators. In 2015, Giuffre accused Brunel of having sexually trafficked girls for Epstein. Now, this is the first time that we have a public accuser publicly making a statement that sex trafficking, not sex abuse, sex trafficking, is a bigger charge. And that also in that same affidavit, Giuffre claimed that Epstein bragged to her that he had slept with over 1,000 of Brunel's girls. That article is in the, which I'm going to share with you, so you could see it for yourself. This is actually a really good article. Before I did this video, I just skimmed through it. It was by Amanda Arnold from the cut, what we know about Jean-Luc Brunel, one of the men closest to Epstein. This talks about this, and I'm going to link this article in the description so you could see it. It's a very good article. I didn't have a chance to read all of it, but it does talk in detail about the lurid case of Jean-Luc Brunel of the last 20 years. This article was actually written in December 17, 2020. So we now have 31 years of accusation. And now we have the first known victim of sex abuse coming out saying Brunel was a sex trafficker under the tutelage of Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein himself. When the flight logs were made public in the Epstein case, from 1998 to 2005, Brunel was listed as a passenger in flight logs for Epstein's private planes on 25 trips. His name comes up more prominently than anybody else. He was also a regular visitor to the jail where Epstein was held in 2008 with at least 70 recorded visits. Now, to read about that, I will share the article here in which, again, Daily Beast, Jeffrey Epstein's modeling ties goes much deeper than Victoria's Secret. It's behind a paywall. Great. Everything's behind a paywall these days. So, okay. We now know that Brunel was at least a prominent figure in the Epstein case. He's also prominent in sex trafficking, sex abuse. And we can safely assert this because we have dozens of people who came out over 31 years accusing this guy of sex abuse and now sex trafficking. But in 2015, a turn of events happened. Brunel sued Epstein, claiming that he and MC2 lost multiple contacts and businesses in the modeling business as a result of Epstein's illegal actions. This is a way of Brunel distancing himself from Epstein. That's all this is. He also alleged Epstein had obstructed justice by directing Brunel to avoid having his deposition taken in a criminal case against Epstein by the Palm Beach Police Department. The lawsuit was dismissed. In 2019, it was revealed that Brunel was among those named in court documents from a civil suit by none other than Virginia Roberts Giuffre against Ghislaine Maxwell. In the Maxwell trial, the documents were unsealed on August 9, 2019, one day before Jeffrey Epstein's death. Believe in coincidences? It's coming from an article from the Sun Sentinel dated October 25th, 2021. The title is Huge Cache of Records Details How Jeffrey Epstein and Madam lured girls into depraved world. So there are major players in this case about sex trafficking. We have Jeffrey Epstein, a billionaire, his associate, Ghislaine Maxwell, used to recruit models that were from Jean-Luc Brunel. Now, there could be more, but we know this much. So we'll keep it condensed here. According to that same article that I just told you about, a chilling picture of how hundreds of girls and young women from around the world were trafficked for sex by Jeffrey Epstein, his Madam Ghislaine Maxwell, and allegedly A number of powerful business and world leaders emerged Friday in court documents unsealed in New York. This right here is the whole epic of the case, because it's not about really Maxwell, Ghislaine Maxwell, or Jeffrey Epstein and Jean-Luc Brunel. It's much more. And that's why these people are dying. Powerful business and world leaders. Now we're talking about the most powerful people on planet Earth, right? People who have influence, people who have nefarious agencies, maybe even intelligence services, heck, maybe even governments involved in this blackmail, if you will. It's bigger than we probably realize. Now, the last time he was in public, seen in public, Jean-Luc Brunel, was July 5th, 2019, at the Paris Country Club. After Epstein was found suicided, he was murdered. Let's be straight up. Brunel went into hiding shortly thereafter. I would too. And the French National Police, which now are going by Giuffre's deposition and documents to the court under the Epstein case, had ran an investigation into him. Finally, in September of that year, his Paris home and offices were searched by French authorities as part of the probe of the Epstein case. And on December 16th, Brunel was captured by police at Charles de Gaulle Airport in France. He was trying to board a flight to Dakar, Senegal. He was taken in and for questioning in relation to rape, sexual assault, criminal conspiracy, and human trafficking charges, allegations involving minors, by the way. And he was in prison at the La Santé prison cell. He was indicted for those charges on September of 2021. He was indicted for a single count of rape. And this comes from an indictment, which was from an allegation that Brunel drugged a 17-year-old at a nightclub and raped her in the 1990s. And that is from an article written by the Metro, which I'll share with you here. Jeffrey Epstein, model agent, a lot of heads, charged with raping a teenager in 1990s. Brunel, said to have supplied girls for Andrew's billionaire sex trafficking friend Jeffrey Epstein, has now been charged with raping a young model when she was 17. Now in her 40s, living in the United States, she told Magistrate Brunel raped her in her Paris home after her drink was spiked in the nightclub. Brunel said he was innocent. What else is he going to say? The victim said she was waiting years for the arrest. 17 years. Fast forward to today, Jean-Luc Brunel is dead. Found hanged in a prison cell in La Santé prison. The camera system was not working. How convenient. His lawyers said his decision was not driven by guilt, but a deep sense of injustice. I mean, come on, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, I'm not a fringe conspiracy theorist. I am a conspiracy theorist, but I'm pretty rational. I'd like to think this is not a coincidence. Someone is killing these people. And look, as powerful as Epstein was, he had handlers. Who was he reporting to? Well, Ghislaine Maxwell's father, Robert Maxwell, has connections with Israeli intelligence, as well as the Israeli government that spans decades. He was found murdered off his boat. Jeffrey Epstein, a billionaire who has relationships with some of the most powerful people on planet Earth, including former US President Donald Trump, American billionaire and founder of the L brands, Leslie Wexner, who's a prominent figure in this. I won't mention that. I will maybe later. Former US President Bill Clinton, prominent lawyer and sleazebag Alan Dershowitz, and Prince Andrew, the Duke of New York, Duke of York. So, of course, there's going to be when you know these powerful people, there's going to be powerful influences. Now, what started before this? I mean, there's other stories before this, since Maxwell's trial. For those who are just need a heads up. Ghislaine Maxwell was found guilty of 5 charges on December 29th, 2021. She was convicted by a jury in U.S. federal court for 5 sex trafficking related counts, carrying a custodial sentence of up to 65 years. And one sex trafficking of a minor, which is, by the way, that alone carries 40 years. One of transporting a minor with the intent to engage in criminal sexual activity, and 3 counts of conspiracy to commit, also charged CHOAP felonies, which is 15 years total. CHOAP felonies means that completed or perfected in and of itself, or perfected complete. She was acquitted on the single charge of enticing a minor to travel to engage in illegal sex acts. And her family said the appeal process has begun. The only witness to use her real name in her testimony was Annie Farmer. And she spoke out after the trial. I'll read you the quote, which is coming from the BBC News article, Ghislaine Maxwell, survivors speak of relief and guilty verdict. You know what? Why don't I just share the article with you, right? So why don't I do that? We can read it together. Annie Farmer, I am so relieved and grateful. I hope this verdict demonstrates that no one is above the law. Maxwell was found guilty of grooming underage girls to be abused by Jeffrey Epstein. Her lawyers said they will appeal the verdict. Ms. Farmer, now 42, and a psychologist, testified that she had been lured when she was 16 to a New Mexico ranch owned by Epstein. I hope that this verdict brings solace to all those who need it. Even those with great power and privilege will be held accountable when they sexually abuse and exploit the young. I was surprised when the verdict was read. I expected after Epstein's death that Maxwell will probably not see a jail cell. You know, and I always thought that the prosecution could have had a lot more on their plate to really overwhelm the jury. And yeah, they had Sarah Newsom, they had Virginia Roberts Giuffre, but they didn't have Maria and Annie Farmer, and they didn't have another person that they could have called. I forgot her name. They could have had a whole lot more. Plus, which I found to be quite obvious, was the CDs that was collected by Epstein's lawyer and brought to return back under orders by the FBI in his Manhattan home. Now, according to Giuffre, Epstein had installed concealed cameras in numerous places on his properties to record the sexual activity with underage girls by prominent people for, like I said, blackmail. This is what this was. Now, Ghislaine Maxwell told a friend that Epstein's private island in Virginia, in the Virgin Islands, was completely wired for video, and that this person who worked for her believed that both Maxwell and Epstein were videotaping everyone on the island as an insurance policy. That's from a Vanity Fair article in 2019. And when the police raided this Palm Beach ranch in 2006, they found 2 hidden pinhole cameras in his home. And that wasn't all, because it was also reported that Epstein's mansion in New York was wired extensively with a video surveillance system. Maria Farmer, who I was following on Twitter, and it was interviewed by Reed Coverdale and Jackman Radio. And if you haven't seen those videos, you should, because those are very good interviews. And, you know, outstanding work by Reed Coverdale to score the video, and as well as Eric Jackman, the Jackman brothers, where they talk about, you know, her experiences. And, you know, here's Reed Coverdale and Maria Farmer.
How big is your file? Is it like really thick? I mean, I was just totally dumb. I didn't understand anything. And I don't know where I even got all that. Like, I didn't even watch TV or anything, so I don't know where I would have gotten this. I never thought about the FBI in my life. But I knew that the FBI offered witness protection to people because I had like heard of that through like a crime show before. And I asked for that and I was denied witness protection. But not only that, I said, I'm reporting the mafia, right? Like, who doesn't protect someone who's reporting the mafia? Well, they didn't want me to live. And they waited 10 years to come back to me. But when I made my report, I said, I need to tell you about all the other people. I saw a lot of people and they're all part of this. And I was very clear. I said, this is an international pedophile and pornography, child pornography ring. And I explained very clearly about these photos that Ghislaine Maxwell had stolen at Les Wexner's from me, from a safe in an area where she was obviously watching on a pinhole camera. And I explained how these photographs are devastating for our family, that I need them back, that it's, you know, devastating psychologically for me, and that I don't want my sisters looked at in that way. And I didn't want and they, you know, they had a picture of me as well. I cared less about that. My sisters were children.
So, you know, and I said, you know, by the way, if you haven't been following Reed Coverdale or Jackman Radio, please do so. You know, they do excellent work. They're very thorough in who they interview. And they're not like fringe conspiracy theorists. They report on pertinent news for the current times. And I suggest both following interviews. So here's Jackman Radio's interview with Maria Farmer.
Thousands a year for sure. And yeah, he was always at like 3 locations a day too, taking women or children. They were children. They were little girls for modeling, right? No. And that's the other thing. They were able to use Les Wexner as a cover because of the L brands. He happily provided that cover, obviously. They used And I love it when he pretends like he's a victim. The guy's not a victim. No one loans somebody $500 million and then cries that it was stolen. He didn't loan it. He gave it, it was his to fund a pedophile ring. I dare him to prove otherwise. Prove it that you didn't.
See, so yeah, please, they do excellent work. Now, going back to the video recordings, this could have been used at the prosecution of Ghislaine Maxwell, and it wasn't. And I can't believe that the prosecution didn't do this. Now, I'm not saying that they are part of the system, but I mean, you're not using overwhelming evidence to prosecute a global sex trafficker in Ghislaine Maxwell. Something very odd is happening here. They could have called a lot more witnesses. They could have called a lot more evidence at the trial, and they didn't. And I always thought, man, you know, this looks like it could be a setup for her to get off of certain charges. But to my shock, that wasn't the case, because she was convicted of 5 charges on December 29, 2021. When that happened, I said to myself, well, I guess that's the end of the story, really. I mean, they'll probably appeal, but what good would that do? Do we have anything to really report about? And I did 2 videos before that, and they were popular, more popular than my 9/11 videos, because it's current, that's why. But it wasn't the end, because almost immediately afterwards, a juror by the name of Scotty David, who was one of the 12 men and women who convicted Maxwell on 5 of the 6 counts, basically came out and said that where he raised the issue that he too was a sex victim of abuse, and that he told other jurors about how to spot a sex trafficker. And I couldn't believe this. I said, how damn convenient. Now there probably is going to be a retrial. Never before seen video captures the moment Ghislaine Maxwell juror Scotty David claimed he wasn't asked about a sexual abuse history in jury questionnaire, sending the sex trafficker's conviction into chaos.
Progress with the deliberations, would that be
correct?
A fair assessment?
Yes.
So you decided to.
Well, sorry.
Were aware of when you were selected as a juror.
Let's replay.
So it took to day 3 for you to really reach that level
Yeah.
of understanding with each other, and then make true progress with the deliberations. Would that be
Correct.
a fair assessment?
Yes.
So you decided to share your story. Presumably that's something that you'd tick yes to in the questionnaire. It was something that people were aware of when you were selected as a juror.
No, they don't ask your sexual abuse history. They didn't ask it in the questionnaire.
I thought in the questionnaire there was a question that asked if you were a victim or if you were a friend or a relative of a victim. Pretty sure it was number 48.
I don't remember.
Somebody sent me the questionnaire today and there was a question.
Interesting.
Yeah, interesting. So, unbelievable. So because of this, and he made the remark that Ghislaine was a predator as guilty as Epstein when he locked eyes with her. Now, the legal experts said that if David failed to disclose his past experience before jury deliberations, Maxwell and her legal team could have grounds to claim a mistrial and have her convictions quashed. Right. Now, it's all debating on whether the question of whether a potential juror was a victim of sexual abuse or a relative or friend of a victim was asked in the 50 question survey completed by each juror ahead of selection. But David said he went into the trial firmly believing that Maxwell was innocent until proven guilty and viewing the victims with a skeptical eye. But he did went on to say that Maxwell knew what was happening. She knew what Epstein was doing and she allowed it to happen. She participated in getting these girls comfortable so that he could have his way with them. Immediately afterwards, Ghislaine Maxwell's legal team files request for retrial over jurors' revelation. Ghislaine Maxwell's legal team filed documents requesting a new trial for following revelations that a juror may not have disclosed childhood sex abuse during jury selection. The questionnaire, this is what dooms Scotty David in this case, had asked witnesses in this case may testify claiming sexual abuse or sexual assault. Would you have any difficulty assessing the credibility of a witness claiming sexual assault or abuse, just like you would any other witness? David reportedly said that he did not recall the question about abuse, but had answered every question honestly. Following David's comments, prosecutors asked Nathan to investigate his remarks. Great. So, what do we do? Right? Is there going to be a new trial? Is there going to be any trial in the future? Well, the story doesn't end there. Now, what was brought to my attention for a little bit that I've noticed too, immediately after Maxwell's conviction and announced there was going to be a new trial, maybe a lawyer's petition for a mistrial, Maria Farmer, who is coming out about her experiences to Jackman Radio and Reed Coverdale, gained a lot of ground with the libertarian movement, started getting attention, started getting harassed online. Now, I have no doubt that she was going through a lot in her years, getting a lot of pressure from God knows who, getting a lot of criticisms from God knows who. And the viral media is unrelenting. It's a cesspool of trolls and whatnot. She deleted her Twitter account. And I saw I think the final one where she said that she was getting off for a while. And that she was a prominent daily poster. And she would get into arguments with some people. And I was even saying to myself that, she probably suffers from post-traumatic stress disorder after the abuse. It doesn't go away, no matter how much help you have. I was hoping that she would get off Twitter. And she did. When that happened, weeks later, Prince Andrew was interviewed about the civil suit brought by Virginia Giuffre. And he didn't deny raping her, but he didn't admit it either. And so, Immediately after Maria Farmer left, this is a month later now, a shocking revelation came to pass. Prince Andrew settles U.S. civil sex assault case with Virginia Giuffre, the most prominent victim who named names, who was involved with the Epstein sex ring, such as Alan Dershowitz, Bill Clinton, Donald Trump, and Prince Andrew. Ms. Giuffre has been suing Duke of York, claiming he sexually assaulted her on 3 occasions when she was 17, allegations he repeatedly denied. A letter filed to the U.S. District Court on Tuesday said the Duke and Ms. Giuffre have reached an out-of-court settlement. It said the Duke, who makes no admission of liability, would pay an undisclosed sum to Ms. Giuffre. In a letter to U.S. Judge Lewis Kaplan, Ms. Giuffre's lawyer, David Boies, wrote jointly with Prince Andrew's lawyer to say the pair had reached a settlement in principle. The parties will file a stipulated dismissal upon Ms. Giuffre's receipt of the settlement, the sum of which is not being disclosed. It said the Duke would make a substantial donation to Ms. Giuffre's charity in support of victims' rights. A dagger in the case of Maxwell. But can you blame Giuffre? 25 years of allegations and pressure from God knows who, from God knows what, maybe even death threats, middle of the night phone calls, always looking over your shoulder. Could have played a part. We don't know. But when a lot of money is being thrown in your face, and you know that the case is slowly falling apart, that a retrial may commence, you cut your losses and run. Well, with her, it wasn't a loss. I don't know. We could speculate as to why she settled out of court. We could be armchair quarterbacks. It's easy for us to sit here and throw accusations and allegations to Giuffre, but that's not fair. It's not fair at all. We're not her. We're not in her shoes, and we could never be. We couldn't even imagine it. Same thing for Maria Farmer, Sarah Newsom, Annie Farmer, and the dozens and dozens of others who are unnamed, who are victims of these ghouls of Jeffrey Epstein, Jean-Luc Brunel, and Ghislaine Maxwell. Well, immediately after Brunel's death, of course, the one person who remained standing, the one who could really break the back. If I have to go down for 65 years, I'm naming names, because that's what I said when she was convicted. Why am I doing this alone? Well, maybe now with the death of Jean-Luc Brunel means not only can we get you in the United States, but we can get you anywhere. They sure can. In an article dated today, Ghislaine Maxwell's family fears for her safety at Brunel is found dead. Family of Ghislaine Maxwell say they fear for her safety after model agent Jean-Luc Brunel was found hanged in his prison cell on Saturday. It's really shocking, Ian Maxwell, one of Ghislaine's siblings, told the Post. Another death by hanging in a high security prison. My reaction is one of total shock and bewilderment. In an interview from his home in London, Maxwell said the family fears for his safety at the Metropolitan Detention Center in New York, where she's being held. Well, that's the same prison where Jeffrey Epstein was killed, suicided, 2 years prior. Here's a picture, FBI photo of Jean-Luc Brunel, Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, rubbing feet with 2 dead men. Well, what does this say? And why am I bringing this up? Because now it says this: you open your mouth and we'll make sure the cameras are off. and they found you suicided by a bed sheet in your prison cell, or you could do the 65 years quietly. But we'll do you a favor. We'll get you a retrial where those involved in the case are dead and the victims suddenly go away through pressure, through money, what have you. This is speculation. I'm just trying to give you a scenario that very well could be in play. It's not unreasonable. The prosecution has already stated that they are in, if there is a retrial, that they're not going to call up many witnesses. That they can't use Ghislaine Maxwell's, Virginia Giuffre's testimony about Prince Andrew. In a Bloomberg article, it states Maxwell prosecutors oppose keeping new trial request under seal. Ghislaine Maxwell's prosecutors said her request for a new trial based on jurors' disclosure that he was a victim of child sex abuse should be public. Prosecutor Maureen Coney on Friday rejected Maxwell's claims as unfounded, arguing there was no reason for the filings to remain sealed because the material was already made public by the juror when he spoke with the media. So Maxwell wanted to keep that retrial from the public. Prosecutors have asked the judge to question the juror, but Nathan has ruled on the request. It's all too convenient. So now we wait. We'll wait on the newest allegations, the newest settlements, the newest stories, the newest information about whether there will be a retrial or not. And hopefully we'll get some new information soon. And hopefully the victims will finally have peace in mind. But we know that real justice is never really done. And with Jean-Luc Brunel's death today, it only goes to show you that when you threaten powerful entities and individuals, justice doesn't matter.